carrying Vice Presidential candidate Mike Pence just slid off the runway at New York's LaGuardia Airport. And we just got exclusive video from inside of the plane. The very first images of what was going on as the aircraft carrying Governor Pence and the press pool slid down the tarmac, unable to stop. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. You're looking at brand new pictures of the moment a plane carrying the vice presidential nominee on the GOP ticket slid off the runway at New York's LaGuardia Airport on a rainy night here in Manhattan. In just a moment, we are going to hear from the Fox News producer who was on board that plane about the governor's actions as this happened. He shot this exclusive video. But first, we go to Trace Gallagher, who's at the breaking news desk with what we know. Trace?
We should know, Megyn, that the 737, which touches down around 120 miles per hour, was, according to that same producer, Dan Gallo, coming in kind of hot. He was on board the plane, and then he says it began skidding. And to quote him, he says it was the craziest landing he's ever experienced. He smelled burning rubber before it finally came to rest in the grass at the end of the runway. We are told that Mike Pence then came to the back of the plane to see that everyone on board was okay. The planes we're talking about kind of use a combination of brakes and reverse thrusters. But one of the reasons you don't see 747s flying in and out of LaGuardia is because the runways are not that long. This runway is about 7,000 feet. That's about 3,000 feet shorter than you'd find at Newark or JFK. Now, as a rule, 737s only need about 4,000 feet. But when you talk about rainy weather like they have tonight in LaGuardia, that clearly changes the map. It's hard to tell when you look at the pictures from which angle and which direction the plane came in, but remember, anybody who's flown in and out of LaGuardia knows they have water at the end of the runways. This plane slid only as far as the grass, and the passengers stayed on the plane for about 10 minutes before rescue teams arrived. They brought down the exit. Everybody walked off board. The governor reportedly was traveling with campaign advisors, the media, as we said, as well as his wife and daughter. We're told that Donald Trump did reach out to Mike Pence and says that he's glad everyone on board is safe. There appears, if you look at the plane, there appears to be some damage to the runway, but no noticeable damage to the airplane itself. But this plane's not leaving for a while, Megyn.
Wow. Trace, thank you. Joining us now with more, Dan Gallo. He's the Fox News producer traveling with Governor Pence, and he was on that plane and shot that video we've just been looking at together. Dan, thanks for joining us tonight by phone. So was it obvious when the plane was landing that you were in trouble?
Well, you know, I've mentioned to some other people tonight that we've had some really interesting landings in this plane. I can't explain why. They've been really rough landings. But so we've kind of gotten used to that. This one felt like we were being pulled off to the side, and it's frankly a sensation that I've never felt before in landing. It didn't feel right. I don't know aircraft that well. I just knew that it didn't feel right. But then again, I couldn't see much outside of the window of the plane, so I couldn't really tell if we were in the grass, if we were going sideways on the runway or whatever. But it definitely felt like it was pulling to one side. And then it came to a really abrupt stop after it felt like they had been jamming on the brakes for the duration of the landing.
And then, like any good producer, you took out your cell phone and started filming things once things settled down. You can see there's certainly no panic on board the flight. What was the first you saw of Governor Pence?
I would say about a minute or two after landing, he walked back and asked if everyone was okay. And, of course, everyone was fine. I mean, we are all wearing our seatbelts. If we hadn't been wearing our seatbelts, it could have been a problem. But everyone was fine. As he was walking away, I said, Governor Pence, 2016, because it feels like this was all, you know, everything else has happened in 2016. Why not this?
And so did you have to go down the emergency slide to get out? I mean, how did you exit the aircraft?
No sliding. We waited for several minutes. We could see emergency lights outside the windows of the plane. Couldn't see a whole lot because the rain was kind of fogging up the windows of the plane. But yeah, we walked down the stairs. Somehow they got stairs to us, and we walked down where there was emergency personnel outside the plane.
Great. So everyone is okay, including the governor, including you. Glad to hear it. And as you say, Dan Gallo, 2016. We've experienced that too. Great to see you, Dan.
I got some mud on my shoes after tonight.
Great to hear from you. All the best
Thanks.
to you. Glad to hear everyone's all right. Also breaking tonight, with just 12 days until Americans elect their next president, there is growing pressure on Hillary Clinton to respond to the latest leaked campaign emails. These notes detail the most lucrative time in Bill and Hillary Clinton's careers, the years after they left the White House, and while Mrs. Clinton served as Secretary of State. A new WikiLeaks release revealing a memo written by Clinton Foundation executive Doug Band. In it, Doug Band details what he calls, quote, Bill Clinton, Inc., an operation to enrich the Clintons by steering top-tier corporations to donate to the Clinton family charity and bankroll the Clintons' lifestyle, even contributing millions to the Clinton family's personal fortune. We've got a big lineup for you tonight on 2016, including Charles Krauthammer, filmmaker Michael Moore, and Trump spokesperson Katrina Pierson. But we begin tonight with Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry and the story behind Clinton Incorporated. Ed?
Good to see you, Megan. After November 8th, some of the world's most influential corporations may still be pouring money into the Clintons' personal coffers. That's because while Bill and Hillary Clinton have promised to swear off new fundraising for the foundation if she's elected, this leaked memo suggests the door is wide open for millions of dollars in consulting fees to continue flowing to Bill Clinton, even if his wife is president. Today on the trail, Donald Trump was all over the release of this damaging email detailing what you called Bill Clinton, Inc. That was not coming from Trump. That's coming from former Clinton confidant Doug Band. Now on the outs after he alleged it was a strategy, actually, to steer donors for the foundation to hire Mr. Clinton for speeches and consulting. The 2011 memo revealing the plan, quote, yielded more than $30 million for him personally, with $66 million to be paid out over the next 9 years, meaning it could continue from 2011 to 2020 or the end of his wife's first term if she's in office, unless, of course, there's public pressure and Bill Clinton is forced to sever some of those contracts. Now, Band wrote the memo after Chelsea Clinton blew the whistle on allegations that his company, Teneo, was making money off of access to her father. He fired back. The foundation literally had about 500 conflicts of interest. He further alleged the former president was collecting money from at least 3 sponsors of CGI, the Clinton Global Initiative, and had accepted personal gifts as well. The Clinton camp has so far refused to even acknowledge the authenticity of these WikiLeaks emails, but the company Band co-founded did confirm the accuracy of his memo, though they insist tonight Teneo never benefited financially from the charity, Megan.
Ed, thank you. The question tonight is, how much does this stunning new information reinforce some of the worst perceptions of Hillary Clinton? And how much does it matter just 12 days away from the election? Tom Bevan is co-founder and publisher of RealClearPolitics.com. Bill Burton's a former Obama White House deputy press secretary, and Monica Crowley is a Fox News contributor. Great to see you all. Monica, let me start with you on those 2 questions.
Well, Megan, we know that the most problematic scandals for any candidate are the ones that reinforce a pre-existing negative notion about that person. The problem for Mrs. Clinton is that these constant WikiLeaks disclosures remind voters of 30 years of Clintonian corruption, and it also reinforces a sense of pure exhaustion that most people feel when exposed to the Clintons for any length of time. When you're getting this constant WikiLeaks drip, drip, drip of pay to play and the idea that Mrs. Clinton leveraged her public office as Secretary of State to enrich herself, her husband, and their foundation, I think it really tells voters that it gives them a glimpse of the past, what we experienced, first of all, with the first Clinton presidency, and a glimpse of the future in terms of what a Hillary Clinton presidency would be, and that's not a good look for her.
The thing is, Bill, it makes it sound like that Bill Clinton was getting rich as he solicited donations for his charity. It was like, a little for the charity, and what about Bill? Hey, here I am, right? And she's not even promising to shut this thing down, you know, if she becomes president.
Megan, first of all, we can't let this conversation get too far down the tracks without saying Russia is trying to have an impact on our election.
I know.
They leaked these documents. They've not been confirmed by the Clinton campaign.
They shouldn't be messing with our election.
Oh, yeah, Russia's not any good. Putin wants Donald Trump to be president. That's why this is public to begin with.
It's true. That is all true and valid.
I think
now
at
let's
this
talk
point,
about it.
yes. But second point, at this point in the election, voters are voting. 10 million voters have voted. The rest of the voters in the final days here are trying to decide who's the best person to be commander-in-chief. If you look at this news and you're a Trump supporter, it reinforces what you already thought about the Clintons. If you're a Clinton supporter, you think, okay, whatever, enough with all the WikiLeaks. For the folks in the middle, they're trying to decide who's going to be the best commander-in-chief. This is not going to have any impact whatsoever on whether or not people think Hillary Clinton should or should not be the commander-in-chief. Donald Trump is running out of paths to 270 electoral votes, and this does not create a new one for him.
All right, so let's pick it up there, Tom, with you on the polling and whether you agree that Donald Trump is running out of paths to 270, because the Trump camp believes they have momentum. The Fox News poll that just came out shows her leading only by 3 and shows her lead shrinking and shows his standing with independents getting better and his standing with the Republicans getting better as well.
Well, look, I agree with Bill that Trump is behind right now and certainly has a lot of ground to make up. But where I would disagree with Bill is that, look, this is, you know, those voters in the middle are trying to decide, right? And this reinforces all the worst perceptions. Whenever the one thing we know about this election is whoever's under the spotlight suffers. Clinton is now under the spotlight because of this. And the other thing is that, you know, one of the things that Hillary Clinton had going for her over the last couple of weeks is she had people, her base, rallying to her, these millennials who were sort of iffy on her a little bit. These kind of revelations, this kind of news might dampen the enthusiasm for some of those softer Clinton voters, and that won't help her in the end either.
What about that, Monica? Because there was a report today that that's part of Trump's game plan is to dampen enthusiasm and actually suppress voter turnout from the key groups that she needs. Will this help?
Yeah, I mean, Mrs. Clinton has always had a difficult time with voter enthusiasm for her and on her side, so this certainly does not help. We've got a group of about 10 to 20% of undecideds. That's the target that both sides are going for. Certainly Donald Trump needs that group of undecideds. So if you're Mrs. Clinton and her campaign, Megyn, tonight, you have to be worried that these kinds of disclosures are chipping away at them, and they're just saying, and I hear this refrain over and over again, I cannot do the Clintons again.
Bill,
I can't do it.
I'll give you the final word. Do you agree that, I mean, there may be chipping, but could there be enough chipping that it actually threatens her lead, whether it's 3 points or 10 points, depending on which poll you look at?
No. There's no poll in America that shows 10 to 20% undecideds. This race is cooked, and I don't think that anything about these new documents that Vladimir Putin wants American voters to see are going to shift those few undecided voters to make Donald Trump president. It's just not going to happen.
It's a weird thing because, you know, they are hacked. You feel a little uncomfortable because it's a valid point that they're hacked and we just sort of go ahead and cover them, but everybody's covering them and they've become a major political story. So anyway, it's important to have the reminder. So Russia, Putin, bad, and then we proceed. Great to see you all.
Thanks, Megyn.
Russia, Putin bad.
Russia, Putin bad. Lots of news still ahead tonight, including Charles Krauthammer on what we just learned about Trump's future plans for the Republican Party. Plus, Mr. Trump was today telling supporters to go watch a film by Michael Moore? What the heck is going on here? We have an exclusive tonight with the filmmaker. Stay tuned. Breaking tonight, 12 days out from Election Day. 12! And Donald Trump, along with key members of his team, are pointing people to a clip from a brand new documentary by progressive filmmaker Michael Moore. What? Here is the part they want to share. Watch.
The right to vote.
But the story does not end there. In moments, we will speak with Michael Moore. But first, Trace Gallagher is in our Los Angeles newsroom with the story behind this strange political alliance. Trace?
Megyn, during the speech that appears in his new movie, Trumpland, the liberal filmmaker explained to an audience in Wilmington, Ohio, about why it is that Donald Trump has more support than people think. Moore talked about Trump's appeal. He even defended Trump supporters, who he once called legal terrorists. Michael Moore is not a Trump fan, but he makes a compelling case about why some people are. Watch. The video has gone viral among Trump supporters, with both Donald Trump and Donald Jr. applauding it. Trump Sr. writing, quote, "I agree, Michael Moore, to all Americans, I see you and I hear you. I am your voice. Vote to drain the swamp with me on November 8th. Political experts say it appears the filmmaker is genuine in his warning that voters who are currently or formerly in the middle class have been forgotten, and that for them a vote for Trump would be the ultimate FU. But this apparent ode to Trump is without context, as Michael Moore himself points out on Twitter, quoting, "Hey everyone, Trump Jr. and the right wing thinks my movie called Trumpland is pro-Trump. Ha ha. Please don't tell them otherwise. Righties have doctored clip from my film to make it look pro-Trump. 7.9 million views, sending millions to iTunes, Trumpland #1. For the record, the viral clip wasn't doctored. It simply left off this part. Watch. Michael Moore ginned up support for his film. Big question whether he also ginned up support for Trump. Megan.
Trace, thank you. Joining us now, the man behind Michael Moore in Trumpland, documentary filmmaker and best-selling author Michael Moore. Michael, great to see you again.
Thanks for having me on.
So the real zinger at the end of this clip is you say that everybody, when they vote for Trump, they're going to find out after a few months in office that President Trump wasn't going to do a damn thing for them. It will be too late to do anything about it. You've done it. You've sent the message. Good night, America. You've just elected the last president of the United States. What does that mean?
That means that, well, first of all, when I said doctor, they cut me off right after I said, oh, and it'll feel good after you vote for him. And then the next line is for a day, maybe a week. But when you find out that your life isn't going to get any better under President Trump and probably will get worse, that's when you're going to realize what the Brits have realized now.
That whole thing is the wind-up to your ultimate hit.
Yeah, it's a wind-up. They only show the wind-up.
You're being duped. That's your argument. But why? And what do you mean he'll be the last president? He's going to blow up the world? Is that your, what are you saying?
I mean, what I'm saying by that is if we elect Donald Trump as president of this country, it won't be the same country after 4 years. I'm absolutely convinced of that. This is the most vile, disgusting candidate that has ever run for office in this country.
How can you say that when you understand the white working class? You appeal to them time and time again.
Yeah.
You understand and you outline perfectly why they're attracted to him. They want him to blow things up. As you say, he's a human Molotov cocktail.
Right. So I'm here, and I'm here on Fox to appeal to people who are watching to not do that. I understand why you're angry. You have every right to be angry. The system has failed you. But he is not the solution to this. And I make the case in the film. The film is a sort of a humorous love poem to Hillary Clinton, because I think
I can hear the ticket sales now.
Yeah, well, it's been #1 on iTunes since last Friday.
Thanks to Trump.
Yeah, well, it was #1. Then The Walking Dead took over. Then The Living Dead. Trump started pushing it because he didn't watch the movie.
Yeah.
If he'd watched the whole movie, he and Don Jr. wouldn't be promoting this.
Yeah, no,
because the movie says get out there and vote for Hillary Clinton.
He tweets out, "This is Donald Trump. I agree, Michael Moore. I agree," he says. And Donald Trump Jr. says, "Michael Moore gets this one 100% right."
Yeah.
But you've said,
So obviously he didn't watch the movie because it tells everybody to vote.
Well, he's a busy man. But speak to this, because you understand. You speak about the people in Ohio, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and in your piece you talk about how they lost their jobs, they lost their homes, they had a divorce, now the wife and kids are gone, the car's been repoed, they haven't had a real vacation in years, they're stuck with the crappy Obamacare bronze care, they can't even get an effing Percocet. They want change, and they don't see it in Hillary Clinton.
Well, they should, because she will make this better. She is the proponent of universal health care. She's been that way for 25 years, and that is what's going to... Obamacare will get better under her. Remember, the real problem with Obamacare is not the Obama part of it. It's that private insurance companies are still calling the shots. They get to raise these rates. There's no control like there is over Medicare and the things that the government has a say in. Obamacare was only a halfway measure. We'll get the rest of it under Hillary Clinton. She's going to do so many things to raise the minimum wage. She's going to do things that will help equality for women.
You like her so much. Why were you against her when she ran against Obama? And you were against her in the primary. You liked Bernie. You seem to be like a reluctant Hillary supporter. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I was a reluctant Hillary, yes, because she voted for the war. I thought she was too cozy with Wall Street. I supported Bernie. I supported Obama 8 years ago.
What about all the WikiLeaks disclosures? Do they bother you?
No.
You're a lefty.
Not at all.
You don't care about the Clinton cash and the...
No, I care about women should be paid the same as men. I care about the polar ice caps melting. I care about the big issues. And those are the ones you've got to have the smart person in the room. And though I may not agree with her on all these issues, that's not really the point anymore. The point is that we have a choice between somebody who is smart, who has a heart, who's going to stand up for kids and for families and for working people. And we have a billionaire who just says these things, trying to pretend that he cares. And just the con with me right now, just the con that where they've taken a piece of my movie and put it out, only half of that little clip out there.
Do you think it's knowing? You think it's knowing, or is it just an error that they haven't?
Well, there's no error. No, it's either one. It's either they're dumb, and I honestly don't think they are. Or they know they're
misleading.
They're like dumb like a fox, maybe. Yes, they are. They know they're misleading people because they're counting on the fact that people who are in the working class are so desperate and so hurt by what has happened to them that all they'll do is hear those few words and not hear the rest of my paragraph.
But even before you articulated very well how they feel, they were with Donald Trump. He is beating her by 33 points with the white working class. 33. I mean, it's huge. They are attracted not just to the messenger, but to the message too.
Yes, that's
and
sad.
But you know how they feel. This is the way many Republicans and what we know about these folks is many of them feel like disenfranchised Republicans. Is they're sick and tired of people talking down to them and telling them they're too stupid to understand what's good for them.
Exactly, and they're not irredeemable. No human being.
They're not deplorable, and they're not all racist.
Racists are deplorable. But you're right. They're not irredeemable. No human is irredeemable.
Michael Moore thinks he's smarter than me. He's basically telling me I'm too stupid to realize I shouldn't support Trump.
No,
well, I get it. I've been watching Trump, and they're saying I love him. I don't care what Michael Moore's trying to tell me.
And what I'm saying is I understand you've been abused. And I'm here in Ohio to conduct an intervention, to basically to say that sometimes abused people have a hard time making up their minds and making the right decision because of the abuse. And the attack on the working class has been so intense over the last couple of decades that I understand why there's a lot of confusion here. And Trump is a huge ball of confusion in this. And it seems like he's going to be your human hand grenade that you're going to get to toss in there. When Trace pointed out there about the legal terrorists, it's that actually what I had said is that there is a legal way on November 8th to do what Trump says he's going to do, blow up the system. You can participate in that by going in there and handing the hand grenade to Donald Trump. I think that's a risky proposition. I think it's a dangerous thing to do. And I think that you're not going to be better off with this billionaire who's never spent a day in his life worrying about you, caring about you, doing anything for you.
If they see it and they find out that it's not a pro-Trump film, they're smart enough to realize this is information. I'll take this point of view and I'll make up my own mind, as they will do in.
Yeah, but he's lied to them, and I'll already have their $5, and I want to give it back to them.
Well, go for it.
I don't know how to do that.
You can give it to me, and I'll make sure it gets to them. Trust me.
You have.
Okay, I gotta go. Michael Moore, a pleasure as always.
Thanks for having me on.
Great to see
you.
Right. Also tonight, with early voting underway, Trace Gallagher has new details on reported problems at the voting booths. Plus, Donald Trump just wrapping up a rally in Ohio tonight, and we'll show you how close the polls are now running in that critical state when we come back right after this break. Breaking tonight, Donald Trump just wrapped up a rally in Ohio where he spoke briefly about the incident in New York, where a plane carrying vice presidential candidate Mike Pence slid off the runway at LaGuardia. There were no injuries. Mr. Trump said he spoke with Governor Pence. Everyone was okay. He was glad to hear that. Earlier today, the Republican nominee hit the big towns of Springfield, Toledo, and Geneva with an anti-Obamacare message, all as his lead looks more and more like a statistical tie. Trump and Clinton neck and neck now, now separated by just 1 point in Ohio. Mrs. Clinton was campaigning in North Carolina today, where she appeared together with First Lady Michelle Obama for the first time in this campaign. They've never been out together. While the First Lady never mentioned the Republican nominee by name, she never does, but it was pretty clear who she was talking about. Watch.
The choice we face between those who divide this country into us versus them, and those who tell us to embrace our better angels and choose hope over fear.
Joining me now, Trump campaign national spokesperson Katrina Pierson and host of The Filter on SiriusXM Progress and DNC platform committee member Namiki Konst. Good to see you both.
Good to see you.
Katrina, what do you make of Michelle Obama? Is she effective out there? Is she a threat to the Republican ticket?
I don't think she's a threat, but I do think she's effective. She's very popular, well-liked in her party, and that's exactly why that Hillary Clinton is having to prop her up. Because Donald Trump's plane sitting idle on a tarmac gets more live stream viewers than Hillary Clinton rallies. But more importantly, what was interesting about this particular event is Hillary Clinton opened for Michelle Obama, and that was startling.
And Hillary Clinton had more people there, 11,000, than she ever gets at her rally by herself.
Sure.
So what does that say?
Well, listen, Hillary Clinton is still beating Donald Trump in every single major poll, so it says a lot that she doesn't have to be taking the front seat. I mean, Michelle Obama is the most powerful figure.
So she was just being kind.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Michelle Obama, let's be fair, she's the most popular political figure in America today.
More so than Hillary Clinton.
But she's not running for office. Michelle Obama gave a rousing speech. This always happens in campaigns. When Hillary Clinton is not campaigning, her popularity goes up, but she's still beating Donald Trump, and that's what we need to pay attention to.
Katrina, the article's out today, this is from ABC, talking about how Clinton's ramping up her surrogate operation, and Trump's withers is the headline, talking about how Ben Carson, Newt Gingrich, Chris Christie, they all used to be much more visible on the campaign trail than they are right now. And the suggestion is that either Trump has decided they're not good, or these guys see a sink that is shipping, a ship that is sinking, and are trying to run off of it.
Or maybe cable news feels like they know what's going on. Our surrogates have been deployed to swing states because that's where this race is going to be won. They're in Florida, they're in Ohio, they're in Pennsylvania, and that's what they're doing.
Ben Carson, he is?
They are definitely campaigning for Mr. Trump.
Chris Christie?
I'm not sure what Chris Christie is doing right now, but I do know the other surrogates are out there. But what I will say is just because they're not on cable news every day doesn't mean that they're not out there campaigning. And again, Hillary Clinton brought up Michelle Obama. Hillary Clinton is supposed to headline her own event, and she can't do it because 30% of the people of this country still says she's
These surrogates are making appearances here and there, but they've gone down. That's the truth. You see far less of these guys than you saw before. And so you tell me whether the Trump campaign has reached the conclusion that they're not helping him. And, you know, in his defense, he doesn't have anywhere near a surrogate like Michelle Obama.
Absolutely.
I mean, there isn't one on the GOP side for him. It's the Trump show. It's the Donald Trump show. And he doesn't need, you know, nobody else can draw the crowds that he can draw. But he's only one man, and he can only be in so many places at one time. So you tell me why these surrogates are taking a lower role.
I think that they can read the statistics. They can read the numbers. Even Trump's own campaign, which uses this, they spend $100,000 a week on a data statistic simulation model that will basically simulate what it will look like on Election Day. And it reflects some of the more sophisticated modeling out there. They even know internally that he is down. It is pretty much impossible for him to win. The only way he could win, he has to win Florida. No matter what, he has to win Florida, and that's his only path to victory.
It's tight in Florida.
It's very tight, but that's his only path to victory, and it's very narrow. You look at a place like Ohio, where early voting is up 23% compared to 2008 and 2012 for Democrats right now. Every single simulation on the Democratic side shows that even though this is supposed to be a state where he has to win as well, Democrats are doing well with early voting. So I think all of his surrogates get the message, and they're thinking about their political future.
Except for the fact that the Trump campaign is actually up in early voting in Florida as well as Ohio and winning in the polls as of today in both of those states. It's going to be a close race. But at the same time, Donald Trump's rallies bringing 25,000 people, and that doesn't include the 132,000 that take time out of their day to go to a computer to live stream his events.
Got to ask you quickly, what did you make of Michael Moore's criticism that the Trump campaign has sliced his soundbite? I mean, at the end of that bit, he's very critical of Donald Trump. He does not support Donald Trump. And you got Trump tweeting out, yeah, Michael Moore is right.
Because he is right. We do see the working class out there supporting Mr. Trump. And even though Michael Moore is anti-Trump, he's talking about being divisive. Donald Trump hasn't been out there calling people deplorables and irredeemable. He's not out there criticizing Catholics for wanting to baptize their kids. He's not calling,
he's alienating every single ethnic group that's not his own white working class ethnic group.
Mr. Trump only criticizes individuals,
well,
not
the
broad groups of people. There is a major difference.
He's a socialist. But he's trying to suppress them, and that's what we have to keep in mind here. The only strategy right now is voter suppression.
Well, that was documented in this article that he apparently cooperated with, the Trump team cooperated with for Bloomberg, but I got to leave it at that.
It was an unnamed source and not verified.
Well, it was the social media guy who's running the whole thing was talking on the record to them. All right, I got to leave it at that. I got to go. That's next in part. Great to see you both. Charles Krauthammer on what we just learned about Mr. Trump's future plans for the Republican Party. Developing tonight, we are tracking new fallout from an eye-opening look into the inner workings of the Trump campaign. The story comes from Bloomberg Media, and it details how Trump's team is collecting data on the businessman's millions and millions of supporters. Information that Trump can leverage in the future, whether he wins the White House or not. Campaign Chairman Steve Bannon saying, quote, "What he's built is the underlying apparatus for a political movement that's going to propel us to victory on November 8th and dominate Republican politics after that." With Trump's digital director adding to that, saying, quote, "We knew how valuable this would be from the outset. We own the future of the Republican Party." Joining us now, Fox News contributor and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Charles, good to see you. So this is basically a look at what the future of Donald Trump and his supporters is, win or lose. Let's start with win. If he manages to win on November 8th, is republicanism now officially Trumpism? And what does that mean for the so-called mainstream Republicans like like Rich Lowry?
Well, I think it's quite I mean, if you win the presidency, essentially you reshape or you shape your party. The Republicans were not a strictly completely conservative, unconflicted conservative party before Ronald Reagan. They had a very strong Northeast liberal wing. Reagan comes in, and the party's been changed irrevocably. If Donald Trump wins, he's not a conservative. He's a populist. And he will have a little more resistance than Reagan did, because he was in tune with the general zeitgeist of the party. But Trump will dominate. There'll be some resistance from sort of old-style, more Reaganite conservatives. But I think if you're president, especially if you succeed in the presidency, meaning you win re-election or you have strong popular support, like Reagan did, you set down the rules for a few decades.
Mm-hmm. And so what if the opposite happens? Trump loses, but he still has so much influence. And this Bloomberg Media article points out that he's spending $100,000 a week on data collection and figuring out who's with him. And they describe the audience that they've built. Disenfranchised new Republicans who are younger, more populist and rural, and also angry, active, and fiercely loyal to Donald Trump.
Well, you saw that in the primaries. You see it now. Remember, Trump said I could go down Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, and I wouldn't lose any supporters. That's essentially what's happened. Through thick and thin, through the Access Hollywood tapes, which would have sunk anyone, a lot of other things before and after.
But where do they go? I mean, what do they do with that loyalty when he's no longer running for office?
Well, that will depend on him. He has himself a plurality of Republicans. Not a majority, as we saw in the primaries, but he's got a sizable chunk, larger than anybody else's. So the question is, what does he want to do with it? Is he going to be Cincinnatus or George Washington and ride away into the sunset? If you lose a presidential election in American history, especially modern American history, you're gone. You know, there's no Mondale, there's no Dukakis. You have your chance, you lose, you don't show up again. But that would be different with Trump. He sort of created, or he discovered, his own constituency. They feel they have nowhere else to go. If he does not walk away, then he can do a lot with that constituency, particularly, as we saw in the Bloomberg article, if he has the mechanics, if he owns the data, if he has a way to email and to reach all of them. And even if he doesn't, he can simply use Twitter or Facebook. So he can shape it into a movement, either to run again for re-election, to influence the midterm elections, to influence the current politics. If Trump decides to stay in the game, the first test will be whether he can successfully bring down Paul Ryan, who's become a nemesis of his, and then we'll know how transitive is his influence.
Right, because if you look what happened with John McCain, of course he went back to the U.S. Senate, but Mitt Romney, you know, he didn't really, for a while he was considered, you know, a Republican leader, but his influence has definitely diminished. And the question is whether the same thing would happen to Trump. And you're saying it depends on Trump. But all along he said, look, if I lose, this is all for nothing. It has been a complete waste of time. And I'm going to go back to running my successful business and, you know, focus on profit making. So it's really up to Trump. We've speculated a lot about Trump TV and whether he wants to build a media empire. But it's up to Trump, and we're really unsure if he loses this thing, whether that's something he has any interest in, as opposed to building buildings, licensing out his name, and doing all the other things that have made his company, you know, what it is.
But we know one thing from his entire life history. He loves the spotlight. He finds it hard to be away from it. And even though he said at the beginning, if I lose, I'll go back to my old life, I don't think, well, I don't know. He'll decide. But I think it is likely he will want to, he'll be changed, and he will have acquired a powerful instrument, a political instrument. He didn't have that before he ran. And he can use it. He could use it commercially, for example, with a TV station or a TV network or some other use in the media, or he can do it politically, in which case he mobilizes his people to influence elections and perhaps his own later on. It's extremely tempting because he built this essentially on his own and out of nowhere, and he's got a lot of options. He's not the retiring type, you might have noticed.
Well, I mean, even if Trump doesn't win on November 8th, he has acted as a voice for large numbers of people who feel disenfranchised, and we'll see whether Trump chooses to use that power to continue giving them a voice. He'd much rather do it from the Oval Office, and he may yet do that too. Go ahead, Charles.
And we will see if the so-called establishment is able to recognize the power and the needs of that constituency and to alter its policies to accommodate them.
Yeah.
That, I think, would go a long way as well in determining how this constituency is responded to.
Charles Krauthammer, great to see you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Up next, with early voting underway, Trace Gallagher has new details on reported problems already at the voting booths. Stay tuned.
Can a touchscreen switch a vote?
People say that they can. I've never seen it do it.
Is that life?
Breaking tonight, I just want to update you on the fact that Governor Mike Pence and his plane were taken off the runway as they tried to land tonight at LaGuardia Airport. No one was hurt. Donald Trump has already tweeted out and responded saying he's glad everyone was okay. And now we've learned that Hillary Clinton tweeted out that she was glad to hear Governor Pence, his staff, and the plane crew were all safe after that plane slid off the runway. Again, no injuries tonight. Also this evening, new reaction to early voting problems in Texas already. Long lines for early voting across the Lone Star State. Now we're hearing reports of problems with voting machines. Trace Gallagher has the details live from our West Coast newsroom. Trace?
Megan, the controversy began when some Texas residents who voted early posted stories on Facebook about voting machines flipping votes. Arlington resident Shandy Clark wrote, quoting here, "Hey, everyone, just a heads up. I had a family member that voted this morning, and she voted straight Republican. She checked before she submitted, and the vote had changed to Clinton. She reported it and made sure her vote was changed back. They commented that it had been happening." But the post was shared some 200,000 times. Tarrant County election officials say a technician checked out the very same machine, even tried to recreate the problem, but could not. And the woman who claims her vote was flipped now admits she might have entered the wrong candidate. But that didn't stop Donald Trump from tweeting, quote, "A lot of call-ins about vote flipping at the voting booths in Texas. People are not happy. Big lines. What is going on?" We should note Texas Governor Greg Abbott is also reminding Texas residents to double-check their votes. The most reports of problems in Texas, but Georgia, Louisiana, Nevada, a few other states also reporting some glitches with their machines.
Wow. Trace, thank you. We'll be right back.
Because we are America's election headquarters.
And let me tell you that the new